So we got, oh, we are on. Good morning. Welcome to KUHS The Stream. You are watching Weekend Boost. I am Paul Lane. I'm the host of the show. And today we are going to be talking to our guest, Marilyn Saltzman. Marilyn is the author of the book, Your Love is Blasting in My Heart, A Grandmother's Journey. And so I'm so excited because this is, as a grandparent, I think that this really hit home for me. And for those of you who are watching today, please take note because there's going to be some real good, useful, and helpful information today. Before we get started, I just want to thank you for joining us again. Also, to just introduce a couple of our past guests that we've had on the show. Lanny Cook has also actually written 5 books. Today I'm going to talk about just briefly Sons of the Eastern Plains. It's about his growing up in eastern Colorado, and just a wonderful story of a relationship that he had with a very dear friend of his. He also wrote the book The Mystery of Zion, Israel, and the Last Days, which is a very interesting book. Friends of the show include Albert Quintana. Albert Quintana has written several books. Today I'm just going to introduce The Crochet Lady. Albert was an educator in the Adams County School District. The Crochet Lady is one that he's written after he is retired. After his first book was No More Green Chili. Another past guest that we've had on the show is Dr. Alyssa Robin, who's actually a very good friend of mine, and Pirate Wisdom is one of her books, and she's actually got another book. Yesterday she had a show, or Thursday a show on crystal balls, which was fascinating. I am the author of The Caregiver's Handbook. This is a book that I wrote about taking care of my wife. She passed away from cancer 12 years ago today. So it's a very special day for me, and I just dedicate this show and this day to Rita Lane, a wonderful friend, a wonderful wife, awesome mother, and I will never ever be able to be thankful enough for having a wonderful wife like Rita Lane. So Rita, I love you. I miss you. I think about you every day. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. Marilyn, thank you so much for joining us today. Your Love is Blasting in My Heart. I just love that title, and I know when I hold my grandkids, I get that same love. Just a second here, got to turn the music down. Forgive me. Sometimes doing the studio is a little tricky. So, Marilyn, tell me, how long has your book been out?
Well, it came out on March 1st, and it's interesting you ask about the title for the book, because the title is based on a letter that my granddaughter wrote to me. Can I read the letter?
Yes, please.
So she was in 3rd grade. She's in 5th grade now. But the letter she wrote in 3rd grade was, Dear Funnest Grandma, you are a spectacular fun grandma. You bring us on amazing adventures. You give us many, many freedoms, such as go places like Elitch's, Jump Street, Big Time, parks. Your love for me is blasting in my heart. I love you so. Sincerely, Salamish.
Oh my goodness.
So that's how I came up with the title for the book.
Perfect. And that really describes what a grandchild's love is. I've heard it said that grandchildren and grandparents have a common enemy.
Exactly. The parent.
The parent, yes. So how many grandkids do you have?
I have 2 grandchildren. They're both adopted. Salamesh is adopted from Ethiopia. She'll be 11 in June. And Dion is adopted from China, and he is 10.
Fantastic. And so, what prompted you to write this book?
Well, a few things. The book is about my journey with Musar, which is Jewish ethics. And the ethics are like common character traits like patience, humility, generosity. And I started studying this about a decade ago. And then my grandchildren came in 2011 and 2012. And I realized how many lessons I was learning from them. And so I was journaling. And as I was journaling, I was writing down the lessons that my grandchildren were teaching me about patience and curiosity and loving kindness. And so that was the beginning of the book. Mm. And I had another inspiration as well. My mother, who died in February of 2016, she was on dialysis, and her body couldn't handle dialysis anymore. And so we took her off on dialysis, and she was slowly finishing her journey, and she was saying some very interesting things. And so I started taking notes. And one day she looked at me and said, "Are you writing another book?" And I said, "Would you like me to write one about you?" And she said, "No, I'd like you to write one and dedicate it to me." Oh. And so this book is dedicated to my mother. And whenever I got tired or thought I'm never going to finish this book, I remembered my promise to my mother, and I had to finish the book.
Nice. Oh, very nice. Yeah, I tell you, I'm going through a phase right now myself where I'm just embracing those that I've passed and that I've loved, you know, and I think it's so important that we do take time in our lives to remember those that we've loved and dedicate time and efforts to the memory of them, and you know, so we keep them alive in our hearts. Yeah. Now, your book is laid out in a way that is almost like a guide. Each chapter has a different topic, and let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes, so as I mentioned, it is based on Musar, which is Jewish ethics, and there are different soul traits. And the philosophy is that we all have these different soul traits: courage, patience, generosity, and that we're each on a journey to develop them to make us the best person we can be. And so we each have a different journey. So, for example, for me, patience is a big challenge. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I'm constantly working on. How can I avoid being impatient in the grocery store when I'm 6 feet behind the person in front of me and they have all these items and getting into a conversation with the checkout person, or in the bank and waiting online, or driving down I-70 and suddenly hitting traffic and you're late for a meeting. So looking at patience is one of the ones that I work on pretty seriously. And so everybody's on their own journey, and some people may be very patient but have more trouble with humility or worry or courage. Mm-hmm. So we're each on our own journey, and the chapters in my book talk about my journey. And so I have a chapter on courage, I have a chapter on mindfulness, patience, curiosity, generosity, trust, enthusiasm. That's a good one for kids to teach you, because kids are so enthusiastic about things that we take for granted, right? Mm-hmm. Compassion, truth. Kids can be very honest, sometimes brutally honest. Humility. And it's interesting because when we talk about humility, we talk about taking up the right amount of space. So sometimes it's appropriate to be humble and be quiet. And sometimes you want to speak out when you see injustice or when you have an opinion that you think is valuable and you want to share. So humility is not about just kind of hiding yourself under a bushel. It's about being appropriate and taking the right amount of space at the right time. Mm-hmm. So in my chapter about humility, I talk about going to my grandchildren's classroom and helping the students learning and helping them discover the answers themselves rather than jumping in and giving them the answer. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how creative kids can be. And sometimes the answer that the book says is the right answer is not what the kids come up with, and they come up with creative answers, and giving them, being quiet enough so that the kids have the opportunity to come up with the right answer is a lesson I learned. Mm.
Wow. That's humbling in itself.
It is. Kids can make you very humble.
Oh yes, no doubt. You know, I gotta share with you, I was having a conversation with my daughter on the way into the show today, and she was talking about this collective consciousness that's going on in our world today, and how we have this outreach of our energies that's 5 feet. And we are now within a 6 feet social distancing. And so what's happening as a consequence, according to some people's opinions, is that we are now into a personal growth within ourselves because of that limiting distance of outreach. And so I I have to, I just was really reflecting on that as I was waiting for the show to start, and then as you're talking about that, I'm just wondering, I wonder how that relates to this communication and relating to our family or to any individual, if that makes sense.
I think it's a really good time to go inside ourselves because we are spending more time alone. And I know that one of the practices I've been doing more since I've had more time and become more, I've been blogging more and I've been journaling more and really being reflective about how this time is influencing our lives. And do I want to be quite so busy when we go back to quote normal, whatever the new normal is going to be?
Yes.
Do we want to take more time to be more reflective and spend more time on our relationships? And which relationships are we missing the most, and which are the most important to us? And I know I certainly miss hugging my grandkids. That's been one of the worst parts of coronavirus for me, is not being able to hug my grandkids. And so I can't wait to when there's a time where I can do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. My grandkids. Well, I have one in Aurora, and I haven't seen her in some time, and I have two in New Mexico. And for me, oh man, I tell you, yesterday was a really rough day. Yesterday would have been my brother's 60th birthday, and he passed away 29 years ago, and then today. And so I've been doing a lot of introspection, and I've been doing a lot of soul searching, and what you're saying just rings so true to me, because I am doing a lot of personal growth, and I'm doing a lot of soul searching, and so the titles of your chapters just, I think they're so relevant to this time, even for adults, even with our own self, just understanding humility and trust and generosity and so many things.
So, I think trust is a big one right now.
Yes.
How do we trust that we're going to come out of this okay, that our loved ones are going to be okay, that there will be a bright future to look forward to, and things will get better, and we will get to hug our grandkids. It might not be as soon as we would like, but it will happen soon.
Yes. Last night I was watching Brene Brown. I don't know if you know who Brene Brown is. She's an author. Yeah. Wonderful. My daughter's favorite author. And she was just talking about this time and how we are really at a time where we have a wonderful opportunity to bring forth some positive, wonderful changes that are not only going to be suited to the needs of a few, but to the needs of many. And so this book is just, I think it's so relevant and so timely for this, even in our separation. I think it's a wonderful time to let that love blast through us.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. It's a good time for self-reflection and writing and reading and just thinking about how do we want to be in the world after all this is over.
Yes. Marilyn, if someone wanted to find your book, I see your website to your left there, MarilynSalzman.com, and they could order the book there, or is it available any other places?
Yeah, there are links on there. It is also available on Amazon. You can just Google my name or put my name or the title of the book. Your Love is Blasting My Heart, and it's available in paperback and also in ebook.
In ebook, yes. By the way, my book is now available on Kindle, and so please do order it. As an ebook, also available on hardback. And those of you that have been ordering, thank you.
I appreciate it as well. As authors, we know that every time you get an order, it does warm your heart.
Yes, it absolutely does. And I think that when most people write a book, their intention is to touch the lives of others, and I really feel like that's the purpose of the book that I've written. I have a guest that was on the show some time back. His name's Dennis Ty, and Dennis has actually become a friend of mine, and we've become Facebook friends, but we communicate. And just reading his story, it's a story called The Last Ride, and it's about 5 motorcycle riders that are all terminally ill, and they're going on this last ride. And oh my goodness, it was such a great story for this time, because we need to embrace every moment, every part of our life is important now, I think.
I agree with you, and it's interesting when you're writing for yourself, and you're also writing because you hope your message will resonate with other people. So I think about both. My daughter just finished reading the book to my grandson, reading it with my grandson, and seeing his expression. And I said, "Did you like the book?" And he had this cute little smile. And he said yes, and so that that made it all worthwhile.
Man, oh man, yeah. I just think that in our life it's important for us to leave a mark, and it doesn't. It needs to be a positive mark. You know, I used to speak as a motivational speaker in the high schools, and I would go through Lincoln High School, and I would see the graffiti on the lockers, and I would see it on the walls, and I walked into a classroom one day, and I said, I don't know who's doing this, marking up, but you got the right idea. You just have the wrong direction. You are supposed to leave a mark, but it's not supposed to be a mark that's erased the minute you walk out of the room. You are meant to leave a mark that is long lasting, and it's something that can be passed down along after your passing of your in this lifetime. And that's what authors do, is they leave a mark that will outlive them.
Yeah, I think it's really an honor to be able to be an author and to leave your thoughts with other people.
Yes.
And to express your ideas so that other people can relate to them.
Mm-hmm. Now, is this your first book, Marilyn?
It is not my first book. I have collaborated on several other books. I wrote a book. My first book was Maybe Tomorrow, A Hidden Child of the Holocaust, and it's about my friend Eric Kahn, who was hidden in France from the Nazi soldiers and hidden by a French family in their basement. And then he was reunited with his father after the war. His mother was killed in Auschwitz. So that was my first book. I worked for Jefferson County Schools for 20 years, and I was communications manager during the Columbine tragedy, and became good friends with Linda Sanders, the wife of the teacher, Dave Sanders, who was killed at Columbine. And Linda said to me one day, everybody knows how Dave died. I want them to know how Dave lived.
That's right.
And so she and I collaborated on a book about Dave. And so I wrote a book about Dave Sanders. And then I collaborated on 2 books with my friend B.J. Meadows, who's a retired school principal. We wrote one about school leadership and how you develop a collaborative relationship with your teachers and your students and the parents in the school. Wow. That's called Building School Communities. And then she and I, a couple of years ago, wrote one called Reflections, Learning by Doing. And she did a lot in environmental education, and it's really about hands-on education.
Wow.
So those are the other books I've written.
That's so exciting. I'm really glad to hear that. So being an educator, I know that you see changes on the horizon as far as the way we educate. What kind of changes, or I should ask, what kind of positive things do you foresee in the months and years to come as far as the way we educate and train children?
I think, outdoor education is really important. Hands-on education is very important. Kids learn by doing, and that is the whole philosophy of the book that BJ and I wrote, is how do you help kids learn by being out in nature, by touching and feeling and really experiencing. And I think there's a lot more of that. Also, as I said, I volunteer in my grandkids' classrooms, and I see how the teachers involve the kids in learning, small group learning, writing reports. And right now we're in a very challenging time where the kids are doing online learning because they can't be in school for the rest of the school year. And I think it's been really interesting to watch teachers being incredibly creative, figuring out how to keep the kids involved and having them do online learning and then going off on their own and learning more on their own. Mm-hmm. So it's a whole new process that we've been forced into this year.
Yes, it's definitely a baptism by fire, I guess, if you will, for lack of a better description. We've really been plunged into a completely different way of life completely. I mean, from the way we sit in our living rooms to the way we do yard work. I mean, in Denver right now they have they're getting ready on the 6th of May to have a mandatory mask rule, and it's just so many changes, and we need to be resilient, and we need to be able to work with that and live with that and go with the change, and I think working to our advantage or use it to the best benefit that we possibly can.
And I think how we communicate with each other with a mask on, it makes it a little harder to see facial expressions.
Yes.
And all the Zoom meetings we're having I talked to a lot of old friends that I hadn't talked to in a while during this stay-at-home phase. and it comes with its challenges and its benefits, I think.
Yes, it does. I really agree. I'm a person that smiles with my eyes, so a lot of times when I'm wearing a mask, I'm in the grocery store. I'll look at at the cashier, and I'll give him a big smile, and try to say hello without words, and it's just a different way to stretch ourselves to really reach out to other people in different ways.
It really is, and brings up a lot of these qualities, like how can we be patient with what we have to do right now? How can we trust that everything's going to be okay? How can we find joy in our day-to-day activities?
Yes.
Even if we can't go to the Colorado Symphony right now, can we listen to wonderful music online or on TV or on the radio? Or how can we find joy in the life we're living right now?
Yes. I got to tell you, it took me some time to realize that, but I'm finding more and more that yard work is very therapeutic. It's backbreaking. But yeah, there's so many things that for me, I'm just enjoying my life in ways that I hadn't. Solitude is something that I've really struggled with. After the death of my wife, I was really, really burdened with that thought of being alone. And what I have personally found is that I really like this being alone. I'm really starting to embrace it and starting to find out that, man, I'm a pretty cool guy. I like myself.
That's good. A friend said the other day, a friend of mine who lives alone said, I'm starting to figure out that the person I live with has a lot of bad habits.
Oh man, I'm telling you, that's the other one that's hard realization. Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh, I gotta get up, I gotta drink my coffee and then get to work, and I'm like, oh, I have another cup of coffee. I'm just gonna take a quick pause, Marilyn. If you're just joining us, guys and gals, thank you so much. I'm Paul Lane. You're watching the Weekend Boost, KUHS the Stream. We're so thankful and humbled that you are here and that you've taken time out of your day to be with us. We are talking today to Marilyn Saltzman. She is an author. Her book is behind her. Your love is blasting in my heart, and it's a quote that her granddaughter had written to her, and I love the subtitle. It's a grandmother's journey, and as you wrote this book and you went through these principles, how did they affect you in your life? Did they change or help you to grow in your own personal life?
Absolutely, I think so. I hope so. Probably better asking my husband and my family members that question. I think so. I think one of the things I write about is generosity, and in the Musar character trait of generosity, there's the generosity that we all think about. Bringing food to the food bank, giving food to the charity. But there's also something called spontaneous generosity. And I really learned that from my grandson, and I write about it in the book. His teacher was giving out old costumes that she had in the closet, and she picked the kids' names out by a stick, and so each kid was called in different order. And so, of course, the kids at the beginning got the best costumes, and my grandson got this camouflage baseball cap that he really liked, and he was really happy and put it in his backpack. And then his friend who sat next to him was called up, and near the end, and the only thing that was left were these feather boas that were more, the girls liked those better than the boys. And the boy came back to his seat and had tears in his eyes, and my grandson said, "What's wrong?" And the boy said, I really wanted a cap like yours. And without thinking, my grandson just grabbed the cap back out of his backpack and handed it to the boy.
Wow.
And that was like an example of instantaneous generosity of a 6-year-old that really warmed my heart and taught me a lesson about generosity that I hadn't learned in any other way.
Oh my gosh, I could see a teacher being brought to tears by that.
Yeah.
I mean, the child's generosity is so unbridled, it's so uninhibited, and it's so beautiful to see.
And sometimes we think of kids as selfish, but they're really not. That they can be very generous and kind.
Yes.
I had another experience. I was traveling, and this young woman came across the road, and I didn't know what she was going to say or and I was a little suspicious. And she picked the hibiscus off the tree and put it in my hair, and then just walked back across the road. And she was probably a teenager. And if you look for the opportunities, and if you look for the instances where people are generous or kind or loving, they're there.
Wow.
They're there, and they can teach you so much.
Wow. When the student becomes the teacher.
Yes.
What was some of the most difficult parts of your book for you? Were there parts that were harder to write, or parts that were more self-realizing for you?
There really were, and when the book, even though I have published other books, when I pressed the publish button on this book, it came out through Amazon. I started shaking, and I realized I was shaking because it was so personal. This book is very personal. I tell a lot about myself. I talk about my childhood. I talk about my children. I talk about my grandchildren. And I think probably the hardest part to write about was trust and faith, because I'm a warrior. I come by it naturally. My family, I come from a family of warriors. And learning to let go of that to some degree and to trust. And I talk about my grandchildren. They're both adopted from foreign lands, Dion from China and Salam from Ethiopia. And when Salam got here, she was malnourished, and she had been starving in Ethiopia, and so she couldn't get enough food. She wanted to eat all the time, and when we went out to a restaurant, she'd go from person to person around the table and ask for, we went to a Mexican restaurant, she was taking tortillas off everybody's plate, tortilla chips off everybody's plate, and I realized it wasn't necessarily because she was hungry, but she had never seen that much food, and she didn't know if that was going to go away.
Oh, my goodness.
And so, for her, learning to trust that there was going to be enough food, and that she could trust us, and that we would always be there for her, really was a lesson for me in trust.
Wow. That is something you don't think about. We have so much abundance that we take for granted here. And
Exactly.
yet there's so much scarcity in this earth. And, I think it's really important for us to take a moment back. And, every week I talk about gratitude. I think that is such an important part of happiness. And it's such an important part of manifesting and success and joy and fulfillment. And to see a child grasping this abundance, and and to someone else it might not look as eye-opening or much of a lesson, but I think that we really could look around us and see so much to be thankful for.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
A lot of nights when I'm going to bed, I'll get my gratitude journal and I'll write in there what I'm thankful for. And sometimes my girlfriend will sit there and she'll say, "Oh man, wow, you were thankful that you didn't burn the dinner tonight. You were so thankful that the candlelight was all set up on dinner." And I just think that sometimes we need to step back and find things in our life that we can be grateful for. And grandchildren are so much that. So were you stunned, or were you shocked by information that you wrote in the book, or were you ever like just a light bulb went on for you?
I think often when I was writing, I think one of the reasons I write, we talked about writing for yourself and writing for others. I think one of the reasons I write is to learn.
Yes.
And so learn about myself, learn about humankind, learn about gratitude and joy and responsibility. And interesting, when I was writing, so many childhood memories came up that I had forgotten, or they'll put in the back of my mind, and then it remembered, oh yeah, this is how I worked with responsibility, or this is how I dealt with gratitude as a child.
As the book developed, did you feel that it took on a life of its own? And I guess for me, as I wrote, my book became more and more of almost an individual entity, and it was something that fed me as much as I was completing it. And I don't know if that was true for you.
It is for me, and I like to write early in the morning when I first get up, sometimes in my pajamas before I eat breakfast. You know, and when I was trying to finish up the book because I wanted to present it at a conference, so I wanted to present it to somebody at a conference. I'd get up really early in the morning, for me, 5 o'clock, and write for an hour or two, and the time just flew by, and the words just come through you, and the ideas, and you just let it flow. And I agree with you. It kind of is like you're channeling yourself, your best self, or your creative juices just get flowing.
Absolutely.
And the time just passes.
Marilyn, if there's someone who's watching the show today and they're almost on the verge of maybe writing a book and they thought about it and they put it on the table and then they thought about it and they never completed it, what advice would you have for someone who's considering writing a book today?
I say just do it.
Page one.
Just set a time. I mean, I write on the computer and I also write in a notebook, depending on what I feel like doing that day. There is something about writing on pen on paper that is nice, but later drafts is easier for me, at least, to do on a computer. But I think you have to let go of your monkey mind and not go all over the place, and you have to let go of your judgment mind.
Yes.
You can always go back and rewrite. You have to go back and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. I was reading a blog by some author one day, and he said he had thrown out 70,000 words of his book. I thought, wow, that's a lot of words to throw out. But I think sometimes the hardest part of writing is you get it down and give up what doesn't work.
Yes.
So when I wrote about gratitude, the first chapter I ever wrote was about gratitude. And I brought it to, I'm a member of 2 writing groups, and I'm forever grateful to my friends in those writing groups who made me such a better writer. And the gratitude chapter just wasn't working. And so it was my first chapter, and I threw it out, and it was my last chapter. I rewrote it.
Oh, man. So
a different chapter on gratitude.
It was important, just not in the right place.
Exactly.
Wow.
I also find that for me, right now I can't swim in the rec center, but when I swim or when I take a hike, I get a lot of ideas and then come back and write them down when I am out in nature.
Yes. Do you find that there are people that if you're with them, you get better ideas? Is that true for you?
Absolutely. And
yes.
As I mentioned, I've been in a couple of writing groups, and my friends have been amazing in terms of editing and helping me with my creativity and giving me some good ideas and good feedback and positive feedback, and also saying what works and doesn't work.
Yep. And be open to that honest criticism and critique.
Exactly.
Yeah. I have a niece, Lisa, and she's like my daughter. And her dad, my brother-in-law, will say I'd go to their house and I would just be sitting there, and all of a sudden all of this brilliant thought would come to me, and it's like, you guys are just so magical to me. And it's like I was so thankful to have people like my niece and my family to just encourage me and to just, I don't know, just feed me that positive energy that we all have to have during our writing of a book. Were there times when you didn't want to, that when you said, I'm going to scrap it, I'm just going to finish the book, or not going to finish the book, or put it on the shelf and not write for a time?
Absolutely. There are times where you just get,
writer's block.
I don't have any ideas. I don't know where I'm going. I need a break.
I need a break. Yeah. I find that, for me, it was very true. I had to take breaks often, and it was difficult. I got to share with, as you were talking, I thought about something. I had a whole section of my book that I was in the hospice center with my wife, and there was a woman in hospice, and she was a very, very intelligent woman, and we became friends. And she was a patient there, and she was looking through my transcript, and she says, this has to go, this has to go. And I was really sensitive, because this is my first and only book that still is my only book, but I really took it hard. I mean, the criticism was really difficult for me, but as I look back, I'm so thankful that she was so honest, because she was one of the reasons that my book has become a better book than it would have been.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we have to be open to that. Oh, tell me about editing your book. How was that? How was that a challenge for you? Or did you have an editor? Or?
I did. I have several friends who my book group edited it, and then I have 2 friends, Gabe Porter-Gillian and Teresa Ford, who are absolutely wonderful editors, and then my neighbor, who's a voracious reader, Kathy Ireland, she read it and gave me some good suggestions. So I got a lot of different viewpoints, and because it's based on Jewish ethics, I had a lot of non-Jewish readers look at it to make sure it was relevant to any audience. So that was helpful to me as well.
And that's one of the things I think I fell short of in my book is I had 11 eyes editing my book, go through it, and I want to share that because if there's someone thinking about writing a book, you need to understand that this is a detailed process. But I think that looking back, that if I would have looked at this from a completely different perspective with someone who had an opposite viewpoint of mine, I think that I could have gotten more depth in my book, and I think it could have been more welcoming to a broader scope, a broader audience. So that's
talking about courage. It takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there, especially your book and my book, which are very personal.
Yes, intimate.
One of the people I asked to read my book was a man named Alan Marinis, who is the founder of the Musar Institute and has really brought the Jewish ethics, the study of Musar, back to popularity in current times. It kind of a lot of the Musar leaders were killed during the Holocaust, and Alan has really been influential in bringing Musar back to current times. And so asking him to read the book was a major step in courage for me. It really took a lot of courage for me to have an expert like that look at my book.
Oh my God, I can't believe that. That'd be humbling, yeah. Spell that for me, Musar.
Mussar.
So if someone wanted to find out about this, it's not something new. This is ancient. This is handed down from generations.
It's actually mentioned something like 50 times in the book of Proverbs. And it was mostly a solitary practice. And in the 19th century, there was a rabbi in Lithuania who was concerned that his students were learning the Bible, but they were not being very ethical in their behavior toward each other. They were very competitive. And so he really started a movement of Jewish ethics.
Yes.
And so it was that sort of became popularized. And as I said, it lost some popularity after the Holocaust, and then as having a current resurgence, becoming quite popular now. There are a couple of institutes and online classes, and there's a lot of opportunity to learn more about it.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'd never heard the term. I would remember reading through your introduction, and he was talking about ethics in the schools and these young boys growing up and needing to learn about ethics, and it's such a valued and valuable and needed quality that we in our society, especially in our upper leadership, upper echelons of our government. I mean, oh my goodness, where did we go wrong? I'm not going to go into too much in depth on that one, but that could be a whole show on itself. Ethics.
And these are they are universal ethics, as I mentioned, like loving kindness, honor, patience, humility, gratitude, generosity. There's something everybody can relate to. And it's really about making yourself a better person so you can be a better person in the world.
Absolutely.
So it's not exactly self-help, it's more helping yourself to heal the world.
So in a library or in a bookstore, what section would your book be found in?
I think probably it would be the spirituality section.
Very, very cool. Now, does your book talk a little bit about religion, or does it talk about faith, or does it kind of skirt those, or? And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm just really interested to know that.
It does. It talks a little bit in the trust chapter. I talk about faith and my faith and my struggles with faith, the struggles with God that I have gone through, and how I dealt with that, and how I grew up in the Jewish religion and kind of let it go by the wayside, and have now returned to the synagogue in Evergreen, where I'm very active, and it's a more open, inclusive environment at Evergreen, and I feel very at home there. So my spiritual journey is part of the book.
Wonderful. I think that's really I think it's nice to reveal a part of yourself that is you, and in my book, I put a lot about Christianity, and you know, in hindsight, I may have put so much that I have rejected or maybe turned away a portion of my audience that may have otherwise been more open to see it. But at the time when I was writing the book, that was really who I was, and my spirituality was something that was prominent in my life. And I think that it's important that when you do write a book, that you do put who you are on that page.
Yeah, it is a memoir, and I would call it a spiritual memoir because it does talk about ethics. It doesn't talk quite so much about the tradition or the customs of the religion, but more about the ethics of religion.
Yes. Marilyn, hold your book up one more time so so the audience can take a look at it. Your love is blasting in my heart. Folks, I really do think that if you're looking for a good read, this is a great time. You know, you're home. Go online, MarilynSaltzman.com. Go to Amazon, get this book, have it in your hands, read this book, because I really believe this is something that people can use, grow from, love, benefit from, and share with others. I really do. Yeah, I really do. As you were getting closer to the end of writing your book, what kind of emotions did you experience? Did you feel at times that you were like, hurry up, let's get this done, or times when you were just like, oh man, I don't know, or how did you feel? What was it like for you?
Probably all of the above. I think I was excited. I was nervous. Part of my background, I was a newspaper editor, and then when I worked for Jefferson County Schools for 20 years, I was in charge of publications. And so editing is a big part of my life, and so I really wanted the book to be perfect. I didn't want there to be one typo or one misplaced comma. And so that's something you're nervous about right before you put a book out too, right? And then there was a lot of excitement. And for me, the marketing part is harder than the writing part. Putting yourself out there is a hard thing to do.
It really is.
If you want people to read your book, you need to do that. You need to get if you think you have an important message, then you need to share that message.
Yes, yes. Have you gotten your book over to the Tattered Cover Bookstore as a local author?
I haven't. I have filled out the paperwork, and then the world kind of fell apart.
Yeah.
So I have not talked to them since the world fell apart. But I will pursue the Tattered Cover. A previous book I wrote, Maybe Tomorrow, the Hidden Child of the Holocaust with Eric. We had a very successful book signing at the Tattered Cover, and that was a lot of fun. And we really enjoyed that. So I hope that I can take a look at the Tattered Cover.
Yeah,
it is in the local bookstore in Evergreen right now.
Oh, cool. Yes.
Fire books.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I usually I don't talk about, and I really should in the future. I will, but the Tattered Cover, that's a world-renowned bookstore, and to get your book in there, it's a great first step. So, just wanted to throw that out there. What else would you tell someone who's writing a book, or in the midst of writing a book, or thinking about writing a book? What other tidbits of wisdom do you have?
I think joining a writing group is really beneficial. The writing groups I belong to we meet monthly. One of the writing groups that I belong to, we actually do a writing prompt every month to get our creative juices flowing. So you get a topic, and last month it was death and taxes, because we were meeting on April 15th, which used to be tax day, but it wasn't this year. But anyway, and you have 10 minutes, and you spend 10 minutes writing on the topic. And it's a good way to get your creative juices flowing.
Too cool.
And then we come together when we read what we wrote, and then we take turns critiquing each other's work. And so each month a different person presents a chapter in their book, or 2 chapters, or whatever. And we talk about what worked for us, where we had questions, where something didn't quite fit together. And then we also talk about missing commas and periods and that kind of thing. Misspellings. But more conceptually. And I think joining a writing group is encouraging, it's supportive, and it also keeps you accountable. You talked about those times when you felt like, I don't want to write this script anymore, I'm not going to do it. But then you have to go to your writing group and admit that, and they encourage you to get back at it.
Wow, that's really good advice. I have some pages written in a poetry book, and I have a couple of other pages written in another book, and I have to admit that it's on the shelf, and talking to you really is a good encouragement for me, because I do believe I have something to offer, and I've heard it said that everyone has a book in them. And so many of us go to our grave without that book ever being written. And so it's really good to sit down and start typing.
There actually is a Jewish, I don't know if it's, I think it might be a proverb that we should all plant a tree, raise a child, and write a book.
Oh man, wonderful! That is great advice. I'm just going to check to see where we are on time here real quick. Oh, we got a little bit of time. Folks, I just want to, again, thank you for joining us. You're watching the Weekend Boost. You are watching KUHS, The Stream. Today we're talking to Marilyn Saltzman. Your love is blasting in my heart, a grandmother's journey. We've talked a little bit about, just how the book was written and what the book means, and what are the things about this book would you like to have folks know? If someone was just looking for a read, is this something that would be entertaining just for someone as a non-parent?
I think so. I think the lessons are universal. Mm-hmm. I think if you're not a parent, you obviously were a child, right? We were all children, so you can relate to some of the stories about what it is like to grow up in this world. The generosity, the joy in nature. One of the stories I tell in the book is a little lake I took my grandkids to, and they discovered some crayfish. I didn't even know there were crayfish in the lakes in Evergreen, but they discovered a dead crayfish, and fishing out the dead crayfish and examining it and figuring out how many legs does a crayfish have, and just the kind of joys that kids have and the natural curiosity that kids have. Mm-hmm. It's just a wonderful reminder that we all, if we can see the world through the eyes of a child, we can all be curious and find joy in the everyday adventures.
Mm-hmm. I love this, thinking about that inner child, that I heard about this woman that was looking at herself in the mirror. She was 80 years old, and she says, I'm still 16 inside here. I'm still 21 inside here, and that inner child never dies.
Exactly.
And so,
can we find the joy that was there as a child? And the curiosity and the wonder of the world. I mean, the world is a wondrous place.
Yes.
Nature is amazing.
Yes. What would you say are the biggest obstacles that you had to overcome in writing your book? What were they?
I think the biggest obstacle is just sitting down and doing it. Mm-hmm. And then, I had a plan in mind. I figured that each chapter would be a different character trait, as I mentioned, joy, responsibility. So basically, kind of when I was paying attention to my grandkids, and I'd come home from a day with them. We used to have them every Friday. Well, we still in the summer, hopefully. We'll have them, they stay with us every Friday, and we go on adventures, as my granddaughter said in her letter, to Elitch's or Big Time or the park or the county fair. And looking at that and said, what did I learn from them today? Mm-hmm. And how can I translate that into responsibility or joy or gratitude or patience? My chapter about patience is about the time we spent in the dollar store and how I told them they could each have a few dollars to buy so many things, and so they were going up and down the toy aisle trying to decide how to spend those precious few dollars, and I was getting more and more ready to leave.
Wow. So the teacher learns the most.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I thought that was what was unique about my idea for the book, was learning from your grandchildren. Because we all do learn from children, we just don't always put it into words.
Mm-hmm. I remember sitting there talking, and I was talking to someone, and my grandson was there, and he comes up to me, and he stands in front of me patiently, and finally he's had enough, and he grabs my face, and he pulls it to him, and he says, Grandpa, look at me. And I mean, that boy really opened my eyes to the significance and importance of this child being in my life.
Exactly. And I talk about that kind of thing in my mindfulness chapter, how kids demand your attention and how you think you're giving your attention. And in this life, in the work world, we're so rewarded for multitasking. That's not what kids want.
No.
They don't want you to be talking on the phone or ironing your clothes or cooking dinner. They want 100% of your attention.
Yeah, watching TV, they want you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Talk briefly about the significance of 13 chapters.
Yeah, so that was an idea from my Rabbi Jamie Arnold, who is also part of my writing group and one of my mentors. And I was talking one day about, how do I know when my book is done? how much should I write about this? Mm-hmm. And he had the idea of that there's a tradition of 13 attributes of God.
Yes.
And so that was where the 13 chapters came from.
Okay, that was great. Chapters. I know Benjamin Franklin had 13 principles of characteristics that he wanted to practice on, and so I thought that was interesting, and so it has some relevance, and it's really an important part of the book. What are there any parting thoughts? What if there was something that you could tell someone, and just in parting that would get them to really consider buying your book, what would that be?
I think it's entertaining as well as informative. I'll read a quote from Alan Marinis, who I mentioned, the founder of the Bussard Institute. He says, "What a sweet and wise book. Every page delivers delights of humor, joy, hope, and inspiration. The journey of life we are all on."
And it's so appropriate. Right now, we need hope. We need inspiration. So not only is this a feel-good book, folks, this is a book that really is important. It's a book that really is useful. A book that is not just for kids. It's not just for grandparents. It's a book that really, I believe, can reach out and touch people's lives. Is there anything else you'd like to read from the book? Is there any?
Sure. I'll read a little bit from the chapter on joy. I was talking about how important nature is for kids. So this is a day we were hiking on a trail in the mountains, and on the way down the trail, my daughter and granddaughter fell behind, but my grandson and I were hiking together, and he was identifying all the rocks and picking up rocks he wanted to add to his collection. And Dion and I arrived back in the car and shared a snack while we waited. Another car pulled up beside us, and two older gentlemen emerged. "Is this a trailhead?" one asked. I answered with an enthusiastic yes, describing how the trail went up the hill alongside the stream. "Thank you," the man said flatly as he and his companion plodded onto the trail. They didn't seem very excited, maybe because they're so old, Dion commented after the two left. "I'm old and I'm excited about hiking." "That's because you hike with kids," Dion replied. He was right. Through his eyes, the ordinary became extraordinary. Every step was an adventure.
I love it. I go out in my backyard and I look at it, at the flowers, I look at the grass, and they just start, I go by them and I don't really think much about it. But when my grandkids are there and I go out in the backyard, I mean, even the chain link fence is beautiful. And it's so true, because kids do bring out the real child in you, and they see the beauty in everything. I mean, when you get a child, you can see beauty in a dandelion, and
exactly
how precious it is. And and we look at it like it's a pesky thing, and it's like, we need to stop and smell the roses. We need to stop and smell the coffee.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I know that there's someone out there watching this show who is considering writing a book. I know that you're there, and I know that you're sitting at your keyboard right now. And I know who's stopping you from doing it, and it's the one you're looking at the mirror. There's a poem that I once heard. I want to share it with you, and it goes like this. "An enemy I had, whose face I stoutly strove to know. For hard he dogged my steps unseen wherever I did go. One night I seized and held him fast, and from the wild did draw. I looked upon his face at last, and lo, myself I saw." Folks, the only person stopping you from taking that next step and going to who you want to, becoming who you want to be, is the one that looks at you in the mirror. Michael Jackson said, "I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways." This is a wonderful time to grow. This is a wonderful time to love yourself. It's a wonderful time to embrace those who are around you, who you love. Whether you can physically touch them, or whether you can touch them through a Skype or a Zoom or a video conference or just a phone call. Now is the time to reach out to those who are shut-ins, those who are living alone, and just reach out and touch their lives because, they're there and they want to hear a phone call from you. Now is the time to pick up your computer and write a book, a lasting legacy. Because our days are numbered on this earth, every one of us, and every day the candle gets shorter, and one day that candle will snuff out. Don't leave this world without leaving that mark. I'm Paul Lane. You've been watching the Weekend Boost. We're talking to Marilyn Saltzman, author of Your Love is Blasting in My Heart, A Grandmother's Journey. Marilyn, I am just so humbled to have you on the show today. I think the timing has been perfect. Again, I'm a little blue. Today's the 12th anniversary of my wife's passing. I was fortunate, so fortunate to be married to Rita Lane, and she was not only my best friend, she was the best wife, the best mother I could have ever hoped for. I wrote a poem that I'm going to share, and I've read it on the show a few times before. I'm going to show you a few pictures, though. If you can see that, that's my brother Joey. He passed away February 27th. That was my baby brother and my last brother in my mother's family. Some pictures. That's my wife when she had the chemotherapy and with her scarf on, and there she is with me in California. And there's such a beautiful picture of her smelling the flower. I'm a very, very fortunate man to have had Rita Lane in my life. And I will never forget what a wonderful life that I had. I'm sorry, I'm looking for this book. This poem. And it's called I'd Have Gotten More Kisses. If I could do it again, I'd have gotten more kisses. More holding hands. I'd do more of the business. More intimate dinners and heart-to-heart talks. More mushy love letters. I'd have taken more walks. I would do much more laughing. I'd do less complaining. More quiet times. I'd go out when it's raining. I'd have pampered her more and looked in her eyes. I'd have cooked her more dinners and baked her more pies. More intimate talks. More walks in the park. More romps in the hay and love after dark. Now the past is behind me. I can't change it at all. I'll do better next time if love ever calls. So don't waste a minute in this life that you live. The day that it ends, you'll have no more to give. Embrace this day, my friends. Love those who are around you. Pick up a book and read it. Pick up your keyboard and start writing. The world needs more of you. We're in a time of change. Embrace this change. Grow with this. Love those around you and appreciate every breath that you take, because you know what? One day that breath will be your last. Marilyn, as we close the show today, I would just like you to just share any parting thoughts that you have.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been delightful, and I hope you and your audience enjoyed it as much as I did, and thank you for sharing about your wife, and my thoughts are with you today.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you. I really do, guys. I just really implore you, go to Amazon, get this book. Go to MarilynSaltzman.com. Order it as an ebook. Order it as a hard copy book. Get this book today. I'm telling you, I really believe that you will enjoy this book. You will love this book, and you will enjoy your relationships with those around you more. Yes. I've so much enjoyed this time. Gosh, it goes too darn fast. I don't know, the show, the time just goes fast over on the show. You've really made my day. I mean, you really made my day. Folks, you have been watching KUHS The Stream. This is the Weekend Boost. We've been talking to Marilyn Saltzman. Your heart, your love is blasting in my heart. A Grandmother's Journey. Order it today on Amazon. MarilynSaltzman.com. Folks, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a wonderful day.